The scream hit my ears before I even saw what was wrong. One moment, I was walking beside my husband like we had done 100 times. The next moment, the air turned sharp and people started running toward the river path. I heard a child cry. I heard feet pounding. I heard someone shout, "Help!" Then my foot slid. The ground under me felt soft and slick, like someone had poured water where it didn't belong. My heel skated forward. My body tipped. I reached out for anything. Air, tree, rail. A hand, but the river pulled at me like a giant mouth. "Pearl!" my husband yelled. I felt his fingers lock around my wrists so tight it hurt. His grip was the last solid thing in the world. "Don't look down," he said, and his voice was calm. Too calm, like he had already made a choice. I tried to pull myself up, but the path was slanted and wet. My shoes had no grip. I could hear the water below, rushing and angry. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would jump out of my chest. And then I saw it. The railing. The metal rail that was supposed to keep people safe. It wasn't broken from old age. It looked cut, clean, fresh, like someone had taken a sharp tool and sliced it, then left it there like a trap. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. "Hold on!" someone behind us shouted. My husband shifted his feet to brace himself. He planted one shoe hard into the mud. He leaned back, pulling me toward him inch by inch. I felt my body scraping the ground. My knees burned, my palms stung, but I didn't care. I just wanted out. Then another scream came, closer and higher. A small voice, and my husband's eyes snapped away from me for half a second. That half a second changed everything. "Jonah!" I cried because I saw what he saw. A little boy, maybe 6, maybe 7, was slipping near the edge too. His hands flailed like he was trying to catch the wind. A woman was reaching for him, but she was too far. The crowd surged. But nobody was close enough. Nobody. Except my husband. My husband looked at me again. His eyes were full of fear and love at the same time. "Pearl," he said softly, "listen to me." I shook my head. Don't leave me." His grip tightened. He pulled me one last strong tug, so hard my shoulder jerked, until my body slid onto a safer patch of ground. I was still shaking, still half on the slope, but I wasn't falling anymore. He pressed my hand flat onto the dirt. "Stay down," he ordered. Don't move." "Jonah!" I grabbed at his sleeve. He didn't pull away with anger. He pulled away with purpose. He touched my cheek with 2 fingers, quick, gentle, like a goodbye he didn't want to say. Then he turned. I watched him step toward the boy. I watched him move fast but steady, like he had practiced this in his mind. Someone yelled, "Stop! It's too slippery." Another voice shouted, "Get a rope!" But my husband didn't wait. He crouched low, Oz stretching one arm toward the child while his other hand held onto the strongest part of the rail that was still attached. The boy's eyes were huge. His lips trembled. He was trying to be brave, but he was just a baby to me. "Give me your hand," my husband said. "Look at me. Just me." The boy reached out. His fingers touched my husband's. For 1 second I thought, he did it. He's got him. Then the ground shifted again. A sound like a crack. Mud slid. But the weak part of the path gave way under my husband's foot and his body lurched forward. "No!" I screamed. My husband's arm shot out, pushing the boy backward, away from the edge like he was throwing a bundle of air. The boy fell onto the safer side, rolling into the arms of a crying woman. And my husband went the other way. For a moment, I saw his face, turn toward me, not scared, not angry, just determined. Like he was saying with his eyes, "I will not let you die." The last thing I heard before everything turned into noise and rushing water was my husband's voice, sharp and loud, calling my name like he could pull me back to him with sound alone. "Pearl!" I crawled forward on my elbows, dirt and tears on my face. My mouth was open, but all that came out was broken air. People grabbed my shoulders, trying to hold me back, but I fought them, because I could still see him, and I could still see something else, something that made my blood run cold. Right near the cut metal, half covered in mud, was a small, bright object, a shiny piece of silver. It didn't belong on a river path. And I knew in the deepest part of me that my husband didn't die because of bad luck. He died because someone wanted that rail to fail. Hands grabbed my shoulders and pulled me back from the edge, and I fought them like a wild thing. I didn't even know I had that kind of strength. All I knew was that my husband had just pushed a child to safety, and then the river took him. "Let me go!" I screamed, but my voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. The crowd moved in messy circles. Somebody cried. Somebody prayed out loud. Somebody shouted for a rope that came too late. And that shiny silver thing near the cut rail, my eyes kept going back to it. It was small, bright, clean-looking, even with mud around it, like it had been dropped recently. I tried to crawl toward it again. "Mom, please," a woman said, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Her hands were shaking too. I looked up at the river, begging it with my eyes like it could hear me, like it could feel sorry, like it could give him back. Then I heard a siren. The sound was sharp and fast, cutting through the noise. An ambulance pushed its way closer. People stepped aside. Someone placed a blanket around my shoulders. I didn't remember it happening. Suddenly I was cold, like all the warmth had left my body. A man in a bright vest knelt beside me. "Can you tell me your name?" I blinked at him. He asked again, slower, like I was a child. "Your name?" I swallowed. My throat hurt. "Pearl," I whispered. "Pearl. Pearl," he repeated gently. "Are you hurt?" I wanted to say yes, not because of my knees or my hands, because of the whole opening in my life. But words wouldn't work right. "I need my husband," I said instead. "I need Jonah." His face tightened, not angry, just careful. Behind him I saw a uniform. A woman with a neat ponytail and a serious face. Her eyes were scanning the ground, the rail, the slope, the wet patch where I slipped. She didn't look at the river first. She looked at the railing. That made my stomach twist. She crouched near the cut metal and reached towards the mud. For a second, and I thought she would pick up the shiny silver thing. But then a man stepped in front of her, blocking her view. "Officer, it was an accident. We all saw it." The officer didn't argue. She just shifted a little, trying to see around him. And then, two people rushed over with a stretcher, and everyone's attention pulled away from the rail again. The world kept moving, but my mind stayed stuck in one place. My husband's hand slipping from safety. When they led me away, I turned my head one last time. The silver thing was gone. I didn't see it on the ground anymore, and that small detail, the disappearing sparkle, made me feel colder than the river ever could. Later, the hours blurred together. I sat in a small room that smelled like soap and old paper. Someone asked me questions. Someone gave me water I didn't drink. Someone told me to breathe like it was that simple. A soft knock came at the door. A tall man with kind eyes stepped in, and he wore a simple shirt and carried a small book. A pastor. "I'm Gideon," he said quietly. "I'm here with you." I nodded, but I didn't feel like I was anywhere. I felt like I was floating outside my own body. He didn't push. He sat a little distance away, like he was giving my pain space. After a while, he said, "Tell me about Jonah, not what happened today. Tell me who he was." That question cracked something inside me, because Jonah wasn't only the last moment. He was every morning before it. He was the gentle tapping on the kitchen counter when he wanted me to taste the soup. He was the way he tied his shoes slowly, like he wasn't in a hurry to grow old. He was the way he said my name like it mattered. "He was good," I whispered. Pastor Gideon nodded once, like he understood. Good men notice things other people ignore. That sentence hit me. Notice things. Like a cut rail, like a missing sign, like danger before it arrives. My mind slipped backward without asking my permission. 3 days before the river. Jonah stood by our front window staring down the street with his arms crossed. The sunlight touched his face, but he didn't look warm. "What are you watching?" I asked him, trying to sound light. He turned slowly. "Nothing," he said. Then he paused. "Pearl, have you been using the river shortcut lately?" I frowned. "Sometimes it's faster." His jaw tightened. "Don't." Just one word. Firm. Final. And I laughed a little because it seemed silly. "Why?" He didn't answer right away. He walked to the table and picked up his keys. His hand hovered over a small notebook that sat near the edge, one he usually kept close. Then he slid the notebook into his pocket like he didn't want me to see it. "Just promise me," he said. "No river path. Not this week." That was Jonah. He wasn't bossy. He wasn't the kind of man who liked control. So when he spoke like that, my heart started to beat faster. "Did something happen?" I asked. He forced a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm just being careful." Careful. That was another word that now felt heavy, because my husband had been careful. And still, the river took him, and somewhere in my head a new fear began to form. Quiet at first, like a tiny scratch. What if Jonah didn't walk into that danger by chance? What if he walked into it because he had been watching it coming? That morning, I woke up to the sound of Jonah humming in the kitchen. It was a small sound, the kind you don't notice when life is normal. He always hummed when he made tea, like it helped the water boil faster. I lay still for a moment, listening, trying to hold on to the calm. Then I heard his footsteps pause, not a big pause, just long enough to tell me his mind was busy. When I walked in, he was standing by the sink staring at the window instead of the kettle. His shoulders were stiff, like he was bracing for something. "Tea is getting cold," I said, trying to tease him. He turned and smiled, but his smile looked tired. "Sit," he told me. "I'll pour." He poured my cup first. That was Jonah. Always me first. On the table near his plate, his small notebook was open only a little. I saw a few lines of messy writing and then he quickly closed it with his palm. I pretended I didn't notice. "Are you going into town today?" I asked. He nodded. "Just to pick up a few things." I watched him closely. "You're worried." He didn't deny it, he didn't lie. He just said, "I want you close today." That should have made me feel safe. Instead, it made my stomach twist. After breakfast, he checked the weather like he always did. Then he checked the time. Then he checked the door locks, once, twice, like a man who couldn't stop his hands from moving. "Jonah," I said softly, "what's going on?" He walked over and kissed my forehead. "Nothing you need to carry," he said. "Not today." I didn't like that answer, but I loved him, and I trusted him. So I followed him when he said, "Let's go together." We took the path near the river because it was the quickest way to the shops. I know. He told me not to use that path. He warned me. But we were together, and I thought that meant the danger couldn't touch us. The air smelled like wet leaves and cold water. Birds hopped along the grass, pecking at seeds like the world was simple. Jonah didn't look at the birds. His eyes kept moving, left, right, ahead, like he was counting exits. As we walked, I noticed something odd. A sign was missing. There was supposed to be a bright warning sign near the start of the path. It had been there for years, but now there was only a bare metal pole with 2 empty holes where bolts used to be. "That's strange," I said. Jonah didn't answer right away, while he touched the empty pole with his fingers, then looked down at the ground. His face tightened. "Stay near me," he said. I laughed a little, trying to make the tight feeling go away. "I'm right here." We kept walking. Then we reached the old railing section, where the path narrowed and the river ran faster underneath. The chain that usually blocked the slippery shortcut was hanging low, like it had been pulled or messed with. The ground had a wet shine, even though it hadn't rained. And my shoes felt too smooth. Jonah slowed. "Careful," he warned. And then it happened. A shout cut through the air. "Somebody's falling!" People ran from ahead of us. A woman screamed a name I didn't catch. A child cried so loud it made my skin prickle. My heart jumped before my body did. I leaned forward to see, and my foot slid. It wasn't a normal slip. It felt like the ground had been waiting for me, like it had been prepared. My heels shot out, my body tilted toward the edge. As for one fast second, my mind went blank. Then Jonah's hand grabbed my wrist. His grip was iron. His voice was steady. "Pearl, look at me," he said. I looked up at him, and I saw fear in his eyes, real fear. But I also saw something stronger. Decision. He pulled me up inch by inch. My knees scraped, my palms burned. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't even breathe right. Behind him, the crowd noise grew louder. And then I heard another scream, small, sharp, and close. Jonah's eyes snapped toward it. A little boy was slipping near the edge on the other side. His feet were sliding like mine had. His arms were waving, grabbing at air. The people near him panicked. They reached too late. They shouted too many things at once. Jonah looked at me again like he was asking my forgiveness without words. "No," I gasped. "Jonah, don't." But he did what Jonah always did. He chose the person who had the least time. He gave me one last hard pull. Out while holding the rail with the other, out while holding the rail with the other. He spoke to the child like he could calm him with kindness. "Give me your hand," Jonah said. "Just your hand." The boy reached. Their fingers touched, and then the path shifted. Mud slid like a blanket being pulled. The rail moved. I heard a sharp metal sound, like something snapping free. Jonah shoved the boy backward with one quick, strong push. The boy rolled onto safer ground, right into the arms of a woman who grabbed him and sobbed. And Jonah lost his grip, not because he wasn't strong, because the rail wasn't safe, because it came loose too easily, because something about it was wrong. I crawled forward, choking on my own breath. "Jonah!" He turned his face toward me for a heartbeat. I will never forget that look. It wasn't panic. It was love. It was, "You're alive, that's what matters." Then he slipped out of sight below the edge, swallowed by the rushing noise. People grabbed me before I could follow. Arms wrapped around my shoulders, hands held my waist. Someone kept saying, "Don't! Don't!" I fought them. I screamed until my throat burned, but the river did not give him back. Hours later, when I sat shaking under a blanket and someone asked me to explain what happened, and the words "it was an accident" floated through the air like an easy answer. I nodded because I couldn't argue. I nodded because my mouth didn't work. But inside me, something refused to settle, because Jonah had warned me, because the sign was missing, because the chain looked wrong, because the wet ground felt placed there, and because my husband did not die from carelessness. He died saving me. And that truth, beautiful and cruel, pressed on my chest so hard I thought it might stop my heart too. The days after the river felt like walking through fog. People kept coming to my house with soft voices and sad eyes. They brought food I could not taste. They brought flowers that smelled too sweet. They sat on my sofa and said the same words again and again. "He was a hero. He saved you. You're so strong." I nodded at the right times. I even managed a small smile once or twice. But inside I felt hollow, like my chest was a room with all the furniture removed. At night, the quiet was the worst. Jonah used to clear his throat before he spoke. He used to tap his spoon on the cup once, just once before he drank tea. He used to hum when he brushed his teeth. Now, the house made no sounds like that. The silence was not peaceful. It was heavy. I would lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, and my mind would play the same picture again and again. His hand pushing me up, his eyes looking at me, and then the empty space where he should have been. Sometimes I would sit up and whisper, "I'm sorry," into the dark, like he could hear me. In the day, I tried to do normal things to trick my heart. I folded clothes. I washed plates that were already clean. I swept the floor slowly even when there was no dirt. But every simple thing reminded me of him. A cup, a chair, a pair of shoes by the door. One afternoon, I saw his jacket hanging on the wall hook. It was still there because I couldn't touch it yet. I stood in front of it for a long time. Then I pressed my face into the fabric and breathed in. It didn't smell like him anymore. That was the moment my knees gave out. I slid down the wall and cried so quietly I could barely hear myself. I didn't want the neighbors to hear. I didn't want anyone to come in and say the same comfort words again. I wanted Jonah. That evening, Nia came to my room with a small plate in her hands. She was only 12, but she tried to move like a grown-up. Careful steps, careful face, like she was afraid that one wrong word would break me. She placed the plate on my bedside table. "I made toast," she said. Her voice was soft. Her eyes were shining. I reached for her hand and she held mine tight, like she was holding a rope in a storm. "Grandma," she asked after a quiet moment, "why do you keep calling it Remembrance Day? Or isn't every day remembering?" Her question hit me in a place that was already sore. I swallowed. "It's the day I promised myself I would speak his name out loud," I said. "So the world doesn't rush past him." Nia nodded slowly. Then she looked down at her own hands. "When people say he saved you," she said, "do you feel happy?" I wanted to say yes because it was true. I was alive. I had been given more time. But the real answer was tangled. "It's both," I told her. "I'm thankful. And I'm hurting. Both can live in the same heart." Nia leaned her head against my arm. She didn't speak again. She didn't have to. The next day, Mr. Adie came by. He didn't knock loud. He never did. He tapped twice, gently, like he was asking permission before entering my grief. He stood in my doorway, holding a thin envelope and a small stack of photographs. "I found these in my drawer," he said. "Old pictures. Thought you might want them." I took them with trembling fingers. Sent there was Jonah at a picnic, smiling with his mouth full like a boy. There was Jonah holding a broken radio, proud that he fixed it. There was Jonah sitting on our porch steps, looking up at me like I was the best thing he had ever seen. My chest tightened. Mr. Adie cleared his throat. "Pearl," he said carefully, "I need to tell you something. It's been sitting on me like a stone." I looked up. He stared at the floor, not my face. "That week," he said. Jonah told me to watch the river path. He said it in a way that made me feel uneasy. My fingers froze on the photo. "Did he say why?" I asked. Mr. Adie shook his head. "No. He just said, 'If you see anything strange, you call me. Don't wait.'" A cold line ran down my spine. Strange. I thought about the missing sign, the wet ground, the rail that looked cut, and that small, shiny silver thing I saw for only a moment. Then it was gone. I forced my voice to stay steady. "Or did Jonah talk to anyone else?" I asked. Mr. Adie hesitated. "He spoke to a few people," he admitted, "about safety, about how that path had been getting worse." My stomach turned. "He didn't tell me," I whispered. Mr. Adie's eyes finally met mine. They were wet. "He didn't want you scared," he said. After Mr. Adie left, I sat at the table for a long time, staring at the photos like they might start moving. Then I noticed something that made my throat go tight again. Grocery lists in it. Little reminders. Grocery lists in it. Little reminders. Sometimes small thoughts. Now it was gone. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly. I searched the drawer, I searched the cabinet, I searched the pockets of his jackets with shaking hands like I might find him hiding there too. Nothing. Just empty space. That evening, Pastor Gideon came. But he didn't bring food. He didn't bring big speeches. He sat across from me at the table and waited until I could speak. When I finally said, "I don't think it was only bad luck," his face did not change in surprise. He nodded slowly, like he had been waiting for me to say it. Sometimes, he said gently, the heart feels what the mouth is afraid to admit. I stared at the table. What if Jonah knew something? I asked. What if he was trying to stop something? Pastor Gideon leaned forward just a little. Then honouring him might mean more than lighting a candle, he said. It might mean telling the truth. I looked at the empty spot on the shelf where Jonah's notebook used to be, and I felt something shift inside me. Not peace, not yet, but a quiet, steady need to understand. And for the first time since the river took him, I knew one thing clearly. I could miss him with all my heart. And still ask the question nobody else wanted to ask. The tin box was heavier than it looked. It sat on the top shelf of my closet, behind old blankets I never used. I had put it there the week after Jonah died, like hiding it could stop my heart from breaking all over again. But that night, the house felt too quiet. Nia had gone to sleep early. Pastor Gideon had left after making sure I ate a few bites of soup. Mr. And Addie's words still rang in my ears. Watch the river path. Don't wait. And the missing notebook kept nagging at me like an itch I could not scratch. So I pulled the tin box down and placed it on the kitchen table. My hands hovered over the lid for a long time. I whispered, Jonah, if you left me something, I need to see it. Then I opened it. Inside were small things that made my throat tighten right away. A brown button from Jonah's old coat. A folded card with his neat handwriting. And a key. The key was not shiny. It looked old and tired, like it had been used many times. It had tiny scratches along the teeth, the kind a key gets when it has been turned again and again. I picked up the card first. It was short, only a few words. Pearl. If anything ever happens, you'll know where to look. Trust your eyes. Trust your heart. Jonah, my vision blurred. I pressed the card to my chest, and for a moment I could almost feel his hand on my shoulder, steady and warm. Nia's small voice startled me. Grandma? I turned quickly. She stood in the doorway in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Why are you awake? I asked, trying to sound normal. She walked closer and saw the open tin box. Her face changed. She didn't ask for permission. She just came around the table and sat beside me, quiet as a shadow. Is that Grandpa's? She asked softly. Yes, I whispered. She pointed to the key. What does it open? I swallowed. I don't know yet. Nia stared at the key like it might speak. Grandpa always had a reason, she said. That sentence hit me hard because it was true. Jonah did not do things just because. He didn't hide things for fun. If he left this key, it meant something. I took a slow breath. Help me look, I said. We began with the kitchen. Not wild searching. Careful searching. Jonah liked things neat. If he had hidden a clue, he would have done it in a way that made sense. I opened drawers. Nia checked the small shelf by the window. We moved slowly like we were walking through a memory. Then Nia stopped near the wall by the pantry. She ran her finger along the wooden panel and frowned. This feels loose, she said. I came over and pressed the board gently. It shifted, just a little. My heart started to beat faster. I got a butter knife and slid it into the tiny gap. With a soft pop, the board came away like it had been placed there on purpose. Behind it was a small space. Not big, not dramatic, But inside, there was a plain envelope and a folded paper with Jonah's handwriting. Nia's eyes went wide. "Grandma?" My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside were simple notes, dates, short lines, arrows, and one thing circled 3 times. A storage place name. I didn't know the place well, but I had seen it before. A small building near the edge of town with metal doors and rows of locked units. The kind of place people used when their closets were full. And under the name Jonah had written, "Unit key in tin. Don't go alone. Talk to Lena." I stared at the words. "Lena," I repeated. Nia blinked. "Who's Lena?" "The officer," I said. "The one who looked at the rail." Nia's face tightened. "So, Grandpa knew her?" "I don't know," I said, "but he wanted me to talk to her." For a moment the room felt smaller, like the walls were leaning in. Nia leaned close and whispered, "Grandma, do you think Grandpa knew something bad would happen?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to keep life simple for her. But Jonah's handwriting was right there, telling me to trust my eyes and my heart. "I think," I said slowly. He noticed something was wrong, and he didn't want me to be scared, so he carried it by himself. Nia looked down. "That's not fair." "No," I agreed. "It isn't." The next morning I called Officer Lena. While my fingers hesitated over the phone like it might bite me, when she answered, her voice was firm and clear. "Officer Lena speaking." I swallowed. "This is Pearl, Jonah's wife." There was a pause, not long, but enough for me to feel it. "I remember you," she said. "How are you holding up?" I'm trying," I replied. "Officer, I need to ask you something about the river path." Her tone sharpened just a little. "Go on." I forced myself to speak plainly. The warning sign was missing. "They are serious words." "I'm not trying to serious words. I'm not trying to cause trouble," I said, my voice shaking. But Jonah warned me not to go there that week. He wrote notes. He left me a key. He told me to talk to you. Another pause. This one felt heavier. Finally, Officer Lena said, "Where are you right now?" "At home," I answered. "Stay there," she said. "And don't go to that storage place alone." My skin prickled. "You know about the storage place?" "I know enough to say this," she replied, quieter now. "Some things about that day don't sit right with me either." I looked at Nia, who was watching my face like she was reading a book. Officer Lena's voice returned to its firm tone. "I'm coming by this afternoon. Bring whatever Jonah left you. Everything." I hung up and sat very still. The tin box was still open on the table. The key lay beside it, small and silent, and for the first time since the river took Jonah, I felt something rise above the grief. Not anger, not peace, just a steady living need to understand what my husband saw before it was too late. Officer Lena came just after lunch. I heard her car door close outside, then 2 firm knocks. When I opened the door, she stood straight with a small notebook in her hand and a serious look on her face. Not cold, not kind. Just focused, like she had a job to do and time was not on her side. "Mrs. Pearl," she said. I nodded. "Thank you for coming." Her eyes moved past me into the house. "Is the child here?" "Nia," I said. "Yes, she's in the living room." Officer Lina stepped inside, careful with her shoes. like she respected my home. She didn't sit right away. She looked at the wall where Jonah's jacket still hung. She looked at the empty chair at the table. Then she looked back at me. "You said Jonah left you things," she said. I led her to the kitchen table. The tin box was already there along with the card and the key. I also placed Jonah's hidden notes in front of her, the paper with the storage place name and the line that said, "Talk to Lena." Officer Lena's eyebrows lifted just a little when she saw her name. She picked up the card first and read it slowly. Then she read the notes. Her eyes didn't rush. She paused at the dates. She paused at the circled words. Nia stood near the doorway, hugging herself, watching. Officer Lena looked up. "Nia, right?" Nia nodded. "If you don't want to hear grown-up talk, you can go to your room," Officer Lena said gently. Nia didn't move. "I want to stay," she said. Officer Lena studied her for a second, then nodded once. "Okay, but if I say pause, you pause, understood?" Nia nodded again, very serious. Officer Lena pointed at the key. "This fits the storage unit." "I think so," I said. Jonah kept it in the tin box." She tapped Jonah's notes with her pen. He wrote, "Don't go alone. That tells me he expected someone might follow you or stop you." My stomach tightened. "So you believe me," I said, my voice small. "I believe your husband was careful," she replied. "And I believe you saw what you saw." I swallowed. "The railing looked cut," I said, "not snapped. Cut." Officer Lena's jaw tightened. "Did anyone else say that?" I shook my head. Well, people kept saying accident like it was the only word they knew. Officer Lena leaned back slightly. "Sometimes people use that word when they're scared of a bigger one." I stared at her. "What bigger word?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she asked, "You said you saw something shiny near the cut rail." "Yes," I said quickly. "A small silver thing. It was there, then it was gone." Officer Lena's eyes narrowed. "That matters," she said softly. Nia spoke, her voice shaking. Grandpa didn't slip because he was careless." Officer Lena looked at Nia, then back at me. "I know," she said. I felt my throat burn. "Then why did he have to die?" I whispered. Officer Lena's voice softened just a little. "Because he did what good men do," she said. "He saved someone, but that doesn't mean the danger was normal." She opened her notebook and wrote a few things. Then she closed it with a firm snap. "We're going to that storage place," she said. "Now." My hands went cold. "Yes, right now?" "Yes," she said. "Before someone else gets there first." Nia stepped forward. "I'm coming." Officer Lena looked at me. "Do you want her with us?" I looked at Nia's face, brave, pale, stubborn in a way that reminded me of Jonah. I wanted to protect her from heavy things, but she was already carrying them. "She stays close," I said. Officer Lena nodded. "Close." We rode in Officer Lena's car. Nia sat in the back, quiet, her eyes on the window like she was watching the world for signs. I watched the road and felt my heart thumping hard. Every time a car drove behind us, my mind whispered, "Is that someone watching?" Officer Lena didn't speed. She drove steady, like panic was a luxury she refused to afford. When we reached the storage place, it looked plain and boring. Rows of metal doors, a small office, and a dusty lot with faded lines. Boring places can hide big truths. Officer Lena parked near our row. It then walked beside me without touching me, but close enough that I felt guarded. "We do this calmly," she said, "and no running, no shouting." I nodded, though my legs felt weak. We stopped in front of the unit number Jonah wrote down. The metal door had a thick lock. I held the key over it, and for 1 second my hand froze. It felt like turning the key would turn my whole life again. Officer Lena saw my pause. "You're not alone," she said. I took a breath and pushed the key in. It fit. It turned with a heavy click. Nia let out a tiny sound behind me, like she had been holding her breath too. I lifted the lock and pulled the door up. It groaned as it rose, like it didn't want to open. Inside was a small space with stacked boxes and one old wooden chair. Dust floated in the light. The air smelled like cardboard and metal, but something felt wrong. The dust on the floor near the back was disturbed, like someone had stepped there recently. Officer Lena noticed it too. "It be opened more than one way," she said. "Be opened more than one way," she said. Nia whispered, "Did they take Grandpa's notebook?" Officer Lena held up one finger. "Pause," she said. Nia stopped talking at once. Officer Lena stood and scanned the boxes. "Don't touch anything yet," she told me. "Let me look first." She moved slowly, like she was reading a story written in dust. And then she pointed at a plastic storage bin in the corner. "The lid is not sitting right," she said. I stared. The lid looked slightly tilted, like it had been lifted and put back in a hurry. Officer Lena put on thin gloves from her pocket, like she had planned for this, then opened the bin carefully. Inside were folders wrapped in a black bag. My mouth went dry. Officer Lena pulled the bag out and opened it. There were papers, neat, copied, labelled with dates. There were printed photos of the river path from different angles. There were close pictures of the railing joints. There were notes in Jonah's handwriting. And right on top was a small, clear pouch holding something silver. My breath caught. It was a little metal piece, short, sharp-edged, and clean like part of a tool. Officer Lena stared at it for a long moment. Then she looked at me and said, very slowly, and like each word mattered, "This is not a river souvenir." Officer Lena held the silver piece up to the light again, like she was checking if it was real. Then she did something I will never forget. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small evidence bag, and sealed it inside with careful hands. "This stays with me," she said. My mouth was dry. "So, Jonah was right," I whispered. "Something was wrong." Officer Lena didn't promise anything big. She didn't say, "I will fix everything." She just said the truth. "Your husband paid attention," she replied, "and what he left here can speak for him now." Nia stood very still beside me. Her eyes stayed on the folders, like she was afraid they would vanish if she blinked. Officer Lena pointed at the disturbed dust near the back of the unit. "Someone came here recently," she said. "They didn't take everything." "Ha, not today," she said. "Not today," she said. "I'm placing a temporary seal. I'll also request a camera check from the office." We walked to the small front office. The clerk was young and nervous when he saw Officer Lena's badge. "Sir," she said, calm but firm, "I need footage from your hallway camera and the gate camera. At any visits to Unit 12 in the last week?" The clerk swallowed. We have cameras, yes." He pulled up a screen behind the counter. Grainy video appeared with time stamps at the bottom. Officer Lena leaned in, her eyes sharpened. There, on the screen, was a person in a dark cap walking down the row. Not running, not sneaking, just walking like they belonged there. Then the person stopped at Jonah's unit. Nia's hand slipped into mine, tight and small. Officer Lina paused the video. "Can you zoom?" she asked. The clerk did, and the picture became messy, but one thing was clear. A thin mark on the person's wrist. A bright strip, like tape or a band. Officer Lina wrote it down. "That helps," she said. On the drive back, the sky looked the same as always. Cars passed, people laughed at a bus stop, life kept going, even though mine had been split in two. Nia finally spoke. "Grandma, was Grandpa trying to catch the bad person?" I stared out the window. "I don't think he was trying to be a hero," I said. "I think he was trying to keep us safe." Officer Lina glanced at me in the mirror. "That's how it often starts," she said. "A careful person notices danger and everyone else calls them worried until it's too late." That evening, Officer Lina came to my house again, but not alone. She brought another officer and a small kit for taking pictures and marking evidence. They didn't make a show, they worked quietly. And she photographed Jonah's notes. She asked me to tell the story again, step by step, in simple words, so there would be no confusion later. When I finished, she said, "I'm going to close that river path until it's inspected." My shoulders sagged with a mix of relief and sadness. "People will be angry," I murmured. "Let them be angry," she said. "Better angry than grieving." 2 days later, she returned with news. Her face was serious, but her eyes held something steady. "And we matched the cut pattern on the rail to a tool used in a small theft case last month," she told me. "Someone has been taking metal parts from quiet places to sell." Nia's voice shook. "So, Grandpa—" Officer Lina nodded once. "The rail didn't fail by accident," she said. "It failed because it was weakened." My chest tightened, but it wasn't only pain this time. It was also clarity. Jonah had not died because he was careless. He died because he did what he always did. He used his own body to protect someone else. Officer Lina went on. "We found the person on camera. The wrist tape helped. We spoke to a local scrap buyer. That led us to a name. He's in custody now." I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel like cheering. I just felt quiet, like the world had finally stopped calling it nothing. On the morning of my Remembrance Day, I went back to the riverside, but not to fall apart. I went to speak. The path was blocked with bright tape. New warning signs stood tall. Workers were fixing the rail properly, with strong bolts and fresh paint. Officer Lina stood nearby, watching them like a hawk. People gathered with flowers like before, but this time I didn't hide behind a small smile. Nia stood beside me. Mr. Addy stood on my other side. Pastor Gideon waited just behind, ready if my knees went weak. I held Jonah's photo in my hands and looked at the crowd. "So, my husband's name was Jonah," I said, slow and clear. "He loved simple things, tea, quiet mornings, helping people." A few people wiped their eyes. I breathed in and kept going. "He died saving me," I said, "and I will miss him for the rest of my life, but I will not let the truth be buried under the word accident." The air felt still. Even the river sounded quieter. "So today," I told them, "we remember him with love, and we honor him with action. We fix what was unsafe. We speak when something looks wrong. We protect the next person who walks this path. Nia squeezed my hand, and I knew Jonah would have liked that. Not the attention, not the speeches, just the safety. That night when I returned home, the silence was still there, but it was different. It didn't feel like a punishment anymore. It felt like a space where Jonah's name could live and where my voice could finally rise. If this story moved you, type "remember" in the comments and share what you would do if you saw something unsafe. And if you want more real emotional stories like this, please like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.